Welcome to Chats from the Peak,
where God's favorites link up.
I'm your girl Lara, aka Dr. Lara.
And I'm Memi.
And here we are for another episode 3. But before we get into it, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are here for Chats from the Peak and representing our platform Marriage Pinnacle. So just a little bit about that. We run a marriage support platform where we utilize different resources, coaching, education, and personalized support to create a community. We want to instill hope and cultivate healthy relationships for millennial couples of color. Those are, what are they called, Mems?
Our pillars? Our peak seekers?
Jesus Christ. Memi, our peak seekers?
Yes, that's what I meant. I meant our peak seekers. You meant our people. Okay.
Yes, our community. Yes, is our peak seekers. And so, we're just switching from the Instagram Live platform. That's where we were doing our podcast-like topics. And we talked to our community and really just connected. And we thought that Chats from the Peak, the podcast, was just an extension of that, where we are really trying to aim. So through Chats from the Peak, we really have an emphasis to build strong marriages. Why is that important, Mems?
Well, I think that's important because without strong marriages and strong families, you're not going to be able to have these strong communities that our generation really, really needs. So that's really why we focus on stronger marriages.
Correct. And yeah, so on Chats from the Peak, we talk about everything. We talk about marriage, sex, relationships, intimacy, and all that good stuff. All right, so our first segment. What is our first segment, Mems?
Internet chokeholds. So those are the things that are happening on social media and popular culture that have us in a chokehold, that train wrecks that we can't look away from most of the time. But we try to take a spin on it where we can take little lessons and things that we can apply to relationships and strong relationship building.
Correct. And so at least while we were doing our research for this episode, what we kind of saw, at least what I saw, was there so much conflict. Yeah. And the conflict that's been happening is really for people's entertainment, and we see it in the blogs, we see it on reality shows, we see it up and down our timelines. And you get a good kiki every now and then, and you laugh at when somebody reads somebody, but there has to be an end and stop. And so for me, this happened a couple weeks ago, but I still think it's relevant. I saw Amber Rose and Jocelyn, that clip that was kind of going viral of them getting into it. And it kind of started off with words, and then it turned into them fighting, right. And for me, I think, when we're thinking about like conflict resolution and healthy communication, I think we see that too much in our culture. And when I say our culture, I'm talking about Black culture, where this idea of not being able to use our words is acceptable.
Right.
Just from the conversation that I saw with Jocelyn and Amber Rose, it was started off as a conversation. You could hear the tones change. You could hear people getting defensive, and then boom. And obviously we don't know the backstory. We don't know their history. We don't know their relationship outside of that. But I just think too often it's this idea that when I no longer can use my words, it's like, okay, we need to fight.
Yeah, time to start throwing fists.
And that's, to me, I just think that that's something that we as a culture need to do better.
Yeah, it's very toxic. And I wouldn't even relegate it to just our culture, but
of course not.
Because we're focused on our culture.
Absolutely.
It's like we can talk about what goes on in the culture.
Correct.
Like Real Housewives of Potomac. There was a clip going viral just last week of these girls duking it out.
Wait, is there new episodes out?
There's no new episodes out
okay.
yet. But it was just like they're filming for the next season. So someone was at the place. They were literally at a club in DC, Zebby's Garden, which we've all been to before.
Oh, wow. Not me.
Oh, I forgot you be. Oh,
inside.
You're inside now. Interesting. Is it inside season? Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, we've all been there, again, like I said, to Zebby's Garden. And it's like, it's just seeing like grown women that we like watch on TV. We spend our days looking at, and they're in the club literally dragging each other across the floor. It's just like, is it entertaining? Did I watch it 100 times and dissect it? Yeah, I did. But at the core of it, it's just like, why is this happening? Yeah. Like, why is this not something that grown women can just talk about?
Correct.
Granted, you don't have to like each other. Granted, you don't even have to know each other. You don't have to agree with each other. But it's just like, violence should just be so far. Like, it should be you should only feel the need to fight when your life is in danger.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, if your life is not in danger, like, if you don't feel like your livelihood is like literally about to end, I don't see a reason why people are throwing bows.
Yeah.
You know, and we grew up in Baltimore City, so it was a fight every day. So it's not like I don't look down on people that fight, but I just feel like as we get older, it's just so toxic.
Yeah.
And I feel like that trickles into relationships. It trickles into everything.
Absolutely.
When you feel like the only way to handle a disagreement is through aggression or anger or intimidation, those are things that could end up in a marriage or in a relationship that are super toxic. Right. So that's kind of what we want to get into today. Yeah. What are some ways of like healthy conflict resolution and ways to sort of deal with issues and like hard issues. Like, we're not just saying that, oh, I want Chick-fil-A for lunch and you want Fridays. Like, no, we're talking about like hard-hitting stuff that you just really can't push through. Right. How do you deal with that?
Right. And, you know, I do want to give the disclaimer. Like, obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of both of those examples that we gave, right? We don't know the ins and outs of Amber Rose's and Jocelyn's relationship. Yeah. Even this, was it Real Housewives of Potomac, right? Potomac. We don't know the ins and outs. We don't know the details and everything like that. And so we're not condemning anybody. We're not pointing fingers. We're not judging. Right. We're just bringing light to the fact that, you know, when it gets to that point, this is unhealthy. Yeah. When it gets to the point super toxic. Right. And, you know, and obviously, you know, people could have felt threatened, you know, in that situation or in that scenario. But, you know, we bring it up to say that a lot of times our society has now made it like commonplace and acceptable to see these things. And we hear less of like applaud for resolving conflict in a healthy manner as opposed to comments filled with like, oh, she dragged her, or yeah, she got what she deserved, which is what we see a lot more of. Yeah. So I think that we just want to make sure we put that disclaimer out there because, again, we weren't there. We don't know what happened and what caused it and what pent up anger could have, you know, had happened between these individuals. But we do feel like, you know, promoting a culture of, you know, being able to communicate in a healthy manner extends to all types of relationships, your marriage as well as your friendships, as well as, you know, as well as the people around you. Yeah. So we want to say that and just make sure that we put that out there.
Yeah, that was good, Lara.
Yeah. So that's our little internet chokehold. What do you guys think? Again, we're not here for, oh, she deserved what she got. More so about like, what are your thoughts on just the culture of it's entertaining to see people fighting, you know, on camera. Yeah.
Or like resolve conflict in like the most toxic ways imaginable.
Right.
And just how that spills over. Because I'm inclined to believe that a woman that's going to bop you upside the head because she don't like what you said is the same woman that's going to drag her husband, maybe not physically. Right. But, or and vice versa for men. Like if you're someone who's going to get that upset with someone because of what they said, then I'm immediately going to apply that to your personal life and how you deal with all your relationships.
That's good.
You know, so I feel like that's kind of what we want to talk about, what the topic of this is today.
Yeah, I like that. And so as you can guess, if you haven't already, we're definitely going to be talking about conflict resolution, healthy communication, and what it kind of looks like when you don't know how to communicate and resolve conflict in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
You know, and so, Mems, I'm about to ask you, what type of arguer are you? So, you know, we put up a post a little while ago, and it talked about like 3 types of arguers. You could either be the type of person who vents. You know, you have to get your point across. It might not be necessarily the perfect time. You could be the person who explodes. Obviously, as you can tell, you blow up.
Yeah.
Or you hide. You know, I'm avoiding. I don't want to talk about it. I'd rather not get into it. What type of arguer do you think that you are?
I feel like I'm a different arguer in different relationships.
Okay.
So I feel like with my husband, I'm more of like a venter. So I'm just like spilling everything. I'm just going to say, oh, how could you do this? How could you do that? How could you do this? And over the years, venting has its, I mean, I feel like all of these kind of have like pros and cons. I don't know if we can stack them like what's better or not. But for me, venting the way I used to vent used to cause me to say a bunch of things that I haven't even processed yet. So I would just be upset, and I would just be like, I don't like that you did this and this and this and this. But it's like nowadays I like to sort of process how I feel first. So if Dapo offends me, or if he does something I don't like, I like to sit down and I always ask myself why. So that's like one of my like marriage hack tips. Okay. So write that down, y'all.
Okay.
Ask yourself why. If something offends you and makes you angry, I sit down and I say, okay, Mems, like, why did that offend you so bad? Why did that hurt your feelings so bad? You know, like, I used to be, like, before, like, I remember, I feel like one time that happened with me and Dapo, it was like a boys' night situation. And, like, me and his friends, we used to all be really good friends in college. And so as time went on, you know, everybody gets married and they move on. And they started wanting to do more boy stuff. And for me, I would feel left out. Like, I can
imagine you feeling
I'm a
left
FOMO girl. I'm a FOMO girl. Yes, that's me. Don't leave me.
Wait.
And I'm definitely my man can't have no fun without me. That's me.
My man.
Yeah, like, I don't want to call you and you laughing in the background, like the Kevin Hart thing. Where he'd be like, haha, babe.
Wait.
I'm like, no. What's so funny? I'm not there.
Can he have a life outside of you?
He can low key, but yeah, don't rub it in. Not high key.
What is the problem?
You can have a life low key.
This is scary.
He's gonna be so disgusted when he hears this. He's gonna be like, ew.
Stop, I'm praying for you.
Sorry, Debs. But yeah, so it was one of those situations, and he had wanted to do something and he didn't invite me, and I was really salty.
Wow.
And so I had to like really ask myself, like, okay, what is it? What is it that bothers you? And then that was when I kind of was able to, like, no, I'm not mad because he's out with his friends. Yeah. I'm not mad because of they're going. It was that I genuinely felt like, wow, these used to all be my friends too. Yeah. And so now it feels like there's a departure, and I felt like I was losing friends.
Oh yeah, that's another topic in itself. Yeah, like grieving friendships. I think that's a topic.
So I kind of felt like, dang, like they're not my friends no more. Like we don't do stuff together like we used to. We everything used to be crew based, you know. But then now it's like boys that all my homegirls in the crew, they all moved away for the most part. So it was kind of like I only had them, you know. But it was like they didn't want me anymore. Oh. So that in that situation, I was able to address him directly, like, okay, that's like when y'all do this, it makes me feel.
That's good.
And I was able to take ownership of my feelings versus putting them on him and saying, like, babe, why you leaving me behind? Like, you always want to do boys night, and then it becomes this whole about the boys night when it has nothing really to do with the boys' night.
That's not what it's about.
So that's one of my, all that to say, I used to be a venter, but now I'm more of a controlled venter. Okay. I like to think about things, and even when I was younger in our relationship, I would always write letters. So I feel like that was one thing that kind of helped me, and not even for the why question, but it just helped me organize my feelings. Yeah, I like that. So like whenever my friends would tell me like, oh, what do I do? My husband asked me to do this. I'm always like, or my boyfriend, I'm always like, write it down. Yeah. Because if you don't write it down, You know how you have an argument with your man, and then when the argument is over, you're always like, dang, I should have said that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you write it down, you don't have that problem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You get to say everything you want to say.
Absolutely. Because, in arguments, number one, emotions get high, right? Yeah. Emotions get high, and a lot of times it's a word or a way somebody responded to something that totally flips the direction of the conversation.
Like, what? Like, how did we get here?
Like, we weren't even talking about Chick-fil-A.
That is the worst.
How did we get to a topic of Chick-fil-A?
That is the worst feeling.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then not being able to get all the points that you had in your head. So I 100% I support that. I do that. Yeah. Like, if it's not writing it down, it's in my phone, it's in my notes, it's somewhere like where I am like saying, okay, these are the things I want to touch on regardless of what direction the conversation goes, so that I'm able to take emotion out of it and stick to the facts, which is super, super, super hard. And that's going to take us to one of our, one of the posts that we did like a really, really long time ago, but I think applies, our T.A.L.K acronym, but I'll get to that later. Yeah. But yeah, I think similarly to you, I would say I'm a venter as well. And one thing I learned early on in our relationship is that even though I wanted to talk about things right then and there, to hash it out, move on, the saying, don't go to sleep, don't go to bed angry. It's overwhelming for some people. Yeah. And I think that at least knowing my husband, he is a very black and white person. It's either this or that. That's it. And I am gray all up and through there, right? I want to know, but okay, but why? And what about this? And like, I'm explaining this to you. Can you not just say K? Can you not just say, all right, I got it? Like, for me, I want to know, okay, I said all this. What is your response? Right. And I think that the venting for me was overwhelming to T.A.L.K because he was like, all right, we had an argument. You said your point. I processed it completely on my own without you. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, no. We definitely need to talk about it. Yeah. I need you to hear my point, acknowledge my point, tell me I was 100% right, because I usually am. Period. I'm usually right. Tell me that I'm right. And then tell me you're sorry, you're never going to do it again. That's in a perfect world, that's what I want. That's what we all want. My husband doesn't do that. He's not going to acknowledge that I'm right. He's going to say, okay, whatever part he played, he has now processed it completely internally, and he's not going to make the mistake again. But it's like nothing has been said to me in that process.
So you're not aware.
So I'm not aware. And so overwhelming for him because he'd rather not like talk about it. He's like, okay, you've brought up your points, they're valid, let's move on. But probably overwhelming because the back and forth is not for him. Yeah. And so I've had to learn over the years that the venting, number one, is not good. But then also, I was also a hider too, which meant that because in the beginning of our relationship, T.A.L.K did not verbalize his understanding of what I was saying, even though he processed it, and most times he would implement whatever, like, okay, she doesn't like this, I'm not gonna do it again. But because he didn't verbalize it to me, I automatically assumed he wasn't listening to me. And so I in turn started shutting down, where I just wouldn't say anything, and I would be furious about things, and I'd be smiling. Don't you know the meme where like it's a mask of the person smiling, but they're crying and they're angry behind? That was me. I know. Like, I'm like, I'm fine, everything's good, but I'm like livid behind the scenes. Yeah. And that was unhealthy as well, like really unhealthy.
And all because you thought expressing yourself would be a waste of time.
Exactly.
Wasted effort.
I felt like it was a wasted effort, and it took a lot of like learning, even as a psychologist, sometimes you think you got it all together, but you don't. I knew it was more effective to say his impact to what it was doing to me. Right. But it was so much easier to just point the finger.
Of course, it's always easier to point the finger.
Instead of like taking accountability of like, okay, this is really making me feel unheard. It's making me feel unloved. Yeah. It's making me feel like you do not care. Yeah. It was so much harder to say that, but so much easier to be like, you don't never say anything back. Yeah. You don't give me anything. You just, and point. And again, if we know anybody, people are going to get on the defense. It doesn't matter if it's your husband or anybody. If you're always having fingers pointed at you, you're going to get defensive. Yeah. And so that's not effective in itself as well. So I really had to learn, like, Lara, you have to take accountability for how you feel and how people make you feel, and verbalize that in a way that can be received so that real changes can be made. And granted, it's still not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. And we're never going to be the ones to be like, oh yeah, we got it all down pat and, come to us. No, we're still learning as things go, but recognizing how unhealthy it was and how it really wasn't helping anything or any aspect of our relationship.
I love what you said about breaking things down so that they can, like, being aware of how your messaging will be received.
Oh, girl.
I feel like that's so important because I feel like people do not do that. Like, all they care about, it's like they put the onus on you to figure out what they're trying to say and how they're trying to say it. Like, oh, don't worry about my delivery. Your delivery is so important.
It's so, girl, let me tell you.
It's so important.
I had a session today with a patient, and that was literally the basis of our conversation. I saw a lot of similarities in this person with my husband in that black and white. It's just like very much so use of like the rational mind, meaning like when I look at anything, I'm rational about it. 1 + 1 = 2. It's always going to equal 2. It doesn't matter. It does not matter if it was 2 quarters that brought the 50 cents to give another 50 cents to give 1. It doesn't matter. The 1 + 1 is always going to equal the 2. And having to break down that your delivery is going to determine how your partner receives your information.
Every time.
Like, you can deliver the same message.
Telling y'all.
3 different ways, and it can be received 3 different ways. The same message.
Honestly.
Like, I gave the example. I said, we use parenting because my client is a parent. And if I told my client, you are a crappy parent, number 1, a lot of times you looking at me like, oh, who are you?
Yeah, like, why would
like
you say
excuse
that?
me? Like,
so
what? That's rude. I could also say, I noticed that you sometimes prioritize your wants over the kids, and maybe you need to do some work in that area to help your kids feel more supported.
Okay, girl.
That right there good, girl. Still is, in essence, like, when you get to the root of it, there needs to be some changes in the way that you parent.
Yeah. It's not working.
Or I could say something along the lines of, I think you need to do a little bit better in how you raise X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
your
that's
kids.
Defensive.
Right. And the thing is, that could be like, well, what do you mean?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like the first way is going to be hurt feelings.
Yeah, hurt feelings.
Right? If you say I'm a crappy parent, my feelings are hurt.
My feelings are hurt.
Right?
The third way,
I'm going to be defensive.
I'm defensive.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, what you mean I'm a bad parent? Who told you that?
Like, wait, who are you?
Who are you? You don't know me. Exactly.
But the second way is like, oh, hold on. Let me think about this.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's communicating. And does it take more time? And sometimes does it take more effort because you're having to stop and think, like, how is this person going to receive it? Yes. But you could still deliver the same message. And I think people sometimes, for the sake of being blunt, for the sake of being rational, for the sake of, like, I don't use emotions, they don't understand the impact of how people are going to receive their message.
Yeah. And they act like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of a selfish component to have, but I feel like I've heard that from, like, even just friends, like, oh, like, he's just so worried because I was screaming at the top of my lungs. He wasn't even listening to the message. I was like, did you say that again?
Say repeat that.
Say that one more time and run
that back.
Because, girl, what? Like, how you screaming at the top of your lung and you want somebody to receive that? That's impossible. Like, that's never going to work. That's how people end up in screaming matches and throwing things and breaking stuff and dragging someone across the floor at the club.
Hello.
Like, this is all a part of it. How you say things it matters.
It matters.
So just like to say packaging, the way you package something.
Hello.
It matters.
It
so
absolutely
it's like
matters.
some people will say like, oh, I shouldn't have to hold your hand through my emotions. And like, no, that's exactly what you have to do.
Yeah. All right. That's good. And I think that kind of goes perfectly into our acronym, right?
Yeah, it does.
So we created an acronym a long time ago that we really think is relevant. So it's T.A.L.K, T.A.L.K, and it really stands for, in our minds, a way to tackle healthy conversations. Mm-hmm. And so the T stands for take time. So take time, and then we'll break it down. The A stands for assess, the L stands for listen, and then the K stands for keep a level head. Yeah. So, Mems, what's that T? What's that T hitting on?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like T is what we talked about. Mm-hmm. Like, you're taking the time to evaluate why this, because this is like a conflict resolution, difficult conversations. Like this method can be used for different things. Yeah. But because we're talking about conflict resolution today, we're going to apply our examples to conflict resolution.
Right.
So, T, if you're upset about something, if there's something turmoil in your chest and you want to get it out, take your time. Yeah. You don't just go at him or
go at her
or him or her. Yeah. And then vomit and then have a word vomit session where you are going to regret half the things you said. Right. No, take your time, figure out why you're upset, figure out why this thing bothers you, figure out what is your accountability on how you're feeling? Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And then write a letter. Like we talked about how we write our feelings down. It doesn't have to be a letter. I'm super dramatic. So I'll be like, Dear babe, how you made me feel on night was so painful to my like, you don't have to be like that. You can just, like Lara said, you just write stuff down like
it can be bullet points.
Yeah, it can be bullet points. It can be anything. Just anything to help you navigate your feelings. Yeah. Because absolutely. You can't expect somebody else to navigate your feelings if you can't navigate your own feelings.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, so making sure that you prepare. So you take that time, cool down.
Yeah, cool it down, girl.
Cool it down, baby. Cool it down.
Have a drink. If you don't drink, pray.
Yeah, pray. Come on now. I'm going to tell you, pray, baby. Come on now. Before you having a conversation, right? And so the A is assess. So we want you to assess whether is this the best time to have a conversation? Yeah. Or are emotions still a little high? Yeah. Like, again, going back, just using myself as an example, was given till like 2 seconds. We had an argument. All right, let's talk about it. I'm still mad. It's like I'm trying my best to talk with an even tone, voice cracking and everything. Mad, and I'm ready to have a conversation. And like, is this really the best time to have this conversation? Or your spouse, you can see that your spouse had a bad day or a long day or a rough day, and you want to just offload everything that you have written down, and you're not really taking a temperature of how your spouse is doing.
How he or she could be feeling.
How they could be feeling in this moment. So after you cool down.
And also place. I feel like it's something we don't talk about either.
Oh, come on now.
Like we talked about assessing the energy and all that, but it's the place. Like there's a time and place for everything. Sis. If you at your mama's house or at his mama's house, don't be arguing with him at his parents' house. Don't argue in a club. Don't argue in front of your friends. Like there's a time, there's a place. Yeah, I like place that. Is also important. It is. Make sure it's somewhere comfortable, somewhere neutral. Yeah, I like somewhere that if things do get a little bit heated, it's not going to be all eyes on y'all and people asking y'all questions for the next 3 weeks. Like, y'all good? Are y'all, you know? So
even in front of the kids.
In front of the kids.
Yeah. So I am a proponent of like being able to model healthy conversations in front of your children, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we are called to prepare our children how to have real life experiences, right? Yeah. And so if they don't ever see mom and dad disagree and be able to fix and address it, then when they get to school, they are picking up what they heard from everybody else, you know.
And when they get older, they have this expectation of a relationship, like, oh, I never saw my parents fight.
Oh yeah.
So we shouldn't be fighting. Why are we arguing? What do they talk about? You know. So it can go both ways.
Absolutely. So so not to say that we thinking just every little argument you have in front of your kids. No. But I am a firm believer that that you want to model healthy conflict resolution for your children, so that they know, even amongst themselves, how to navigate when things don't go their way. Yeah. They're able to verbalize their feelings. They're able to recognize that, okay, that hurt my feelings. I didn't like it. It made me mad, whatever the case may be, and move on. Interestingly enough, can I even just segue for 2 seconds? Go ahead, girl. I get a message from Levi's teacher today. Levi's my son. My son is 5 years old. And apparently, a little boy either got in front of him or did something to him, and Levi said, "You're pissing me off."
Not him sounding like his mother.
Wait, why I had to be made up? Excuse me?
Sorry, y'all, that was loud.
Wait, excuse me? Did you just automatically assume it was me?
That is exactly how Lara talks. Word for word.
What?
You're pissing me off. Like, what?
The emphasis on pissing. I was just like, yikes. I was like, wow. So as I mentioned about the modeling, your kids will see the good and the bad.
That's funny.
And I 100% had to take responsibility because before Memi had to say it for me.
Sorry.
That is absolutely something I have said. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even directed to the kids, but I have said, "You're pissing me off" on the phone or whoever I'm talking to. Natural. I think funny thing is, when I think it's even, he's probably heard it when I'm talking to like telemarketers, or like people I'm on hold with customer service. I do say it. So I literally know that I am modeling behavior.
It can literally be like your computer is like stuck.
You already know that
on one screen.
And I'm gonna say
and Lara's
it's pissing me off.
And
I'm gonna emphasize
that is her thing.
Yeah. So God help me. But again, going back to that modeling, your kids see what you do, and that's what they do as well. Yeah. And I could understand his emotions. He was angry, and in response to his anger, he told this little classmate that he is pissing him off. And so obviously that is not what we want you to do, but yes. So I digress. Okay. So what is our L? What does L stand for?
Okay. L is listen for understanding and not where to rebuttal, or just listen in general. Ooh. Right? So that's something that I struggled with before, is like when it's time to talk, I'm going to talk. And I expect you to listen to every single thing I say and repeat it back to me, right? But when it comes to my turn to listen, I'm always listening with like trying to like, if you're talking to me, or if me and my husband are having a conversation, or let's just say an argument or whatever, and he's saying the wrong thing, or something that I don't agree with, I'm going to stop you at every sentence.
Oh, so ears is to the street.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to stop you at every sentence to clarify. Like, no, actually, no, but run that back. Yeah. And it's like, as I got older, I'm like, that is so rude. Yeah. So it's like I'm still working on that, child, because I'm the queen of cutting somebody off. But, listening is very important. Absolutely. You have to, you can't have a two-way healthy conversation when you're only listening to respond, or you're only listening to give it back. Yeah, that's good. It's like you're not even going to remember what this person was saying.
That's good.
That's
good. That's good. I like that. And that's what we therapists call active listening, right?
Active listening.
You want to be able to repeat what somebody says, not just for the sake of repeating it, but because you can understand where they're coming from. And I think it's hard, right? It's hard because, especially when that's not what you said,
that's not
what you meant. You want to just be like, actually,
I didn't say that.
I didn't say that, and I ain't never mean it like that. So don't put words in my mouth, bruh. But if you're listening for understanding, then that means you're taking in what the person says and what they perceive to be what they heard. Yeah. And again, if you need to write it down just so you don't forget, yes, that's a great one. But you need to let the person speak and be heard, and then listen for understanding.
Yeah.
You know,
something that Dapo has started doing in our conversations, because I do struggle with active listening, is he'll say, "What did I just say?"
Ooh,
like he'll be like, "Repeat what I said," and then I'm gonna take what he said and I'm gonna memify it. It's gonna sound totally different because it's gonna be exactly how I heard what he said.
Hello,
you know, he could say like, "No, the sky is blue," and I'm be like, "Well," and he said, "What did I say?" And I'm going to say, well, what you said was that the sky has some interesting pigmentation with some white clouds around it, and I don't like that. And he'd be like, that's not what I said.
That's not what I said, though.
That's not what I said.
Can you listen?
I like that he started doing that because it does help me kind of understand him more. Because I tend to think of like the Dapo I know and what he means by what he said.
Right.
And he's like, I'm not even going there.
Right. And you know, and that I think we do that too. I think that's a good point that you bring up, that sometimes you project, but then also like, the person that you just automatically assume that they're saying it with an attitude or they're saying it this way. And it's like, I'm actually coming to you neutral, baby.
Like, I'm not even
chilling today. I'm actually chilling. But because you know me and you know I'm dramatic or you know that I emphasize certain things, now you just want to...
This preconceived notion.
Yeah, and I think, again...
What I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so if you're actively listening, you're in the moment, you know, so that's important. Yeah. So again, running that back, T is take time. A is assess, L is listen, and K is keep a level head.
Girl, don't get out the box.
Important. And again, I think that goes right back to that example you were talking about with your friend when she was like, "Well, I was screaming and da 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 da," and you think they're hearing you?
Nothing is getting accomplished.
Nothing. Yeah. It's so important that you keep a level head and choose your words carefully. Yeah. Because again, in an argument, in a disagreement, in a whatever the case may be, in a conversation, when you're able to keep your head level and when you're able to take kind of emotions out and hear things for what they are.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that goes back again to choosing your words so that people can receive the messages you're trying to deliver. Right?
Yes.
If you aren't able to do that, conflict resolution is going to be difficult every time, baby.
You're going to be struggling.
You're going to be struggling. So that's like a nice little acronym that you can use in any relationship. It can be with your spouse, your partner, your friend, your mama, your uncle, your cousin, your coworker.
All of the above.
All of the above. Because at the end of the day, it just really takes you. It's all about you and what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
You're taking the time to cool down. You're assessing the situation. You're listening and you're keeping a level head. Yeah. So these are all things that you can implement in order to have better healthier conflicts, fighting fair in the conversations that you're having. And just an extra one, I really I touched on it a little bit, and I know this is something that you definitely do, Memi, but just the use of I statements, right? So I'm big on I statements, and again, like I said, it took a long time for me to actually implement using them. So I know all about them. I know the benefit of them.
Yeah.
But that accountability piece, again, it's a bit of vulnerability that's required, right? Yeah. If you're saying, I feel left out, like you said with that example, like I feel left out, like it's not about you guys hanging with the boys. It's not about you hanging with the boys. It's about me feeling left out. It's about the changes that have happened in the dynamic of our friendship. Yeah. And so that's you being vulnerable to the feelings that you're having. Right. As opposed to saying, Dapo, you always going out somewhere. When it has really nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. So I really think that using I statements promotes accountability of how you feel. It's a level of, I think to me, it helps promote deeper intimacy with your partner when you're able to be vulnerable about how you feel about a certain situation. And then it helps to kind of like deconstruct the possibility for defensiveness.
Yes. It takes the person's guard down. Because if you're coming at someone with something that they're doing wrong and they need to fix, that person is immediately going to be in defensive. Their guard is going to be up. Yeah. But when you come into it like, you know what? It becomes, the person is immediately like, oh, okay, so she's not putting it on me. Yeah. She's telling me how she feels, or he's telling me how he feels. Yeah. And then I'm left to see what does it have to do with me? Yeah. Right? And what can I do to help her feel better? Yeah. Because as a partner, you should want your partner to feel better. Like, you shouldn't want them to feel bad or feel down or the person jumps into solving mode. Like, okay, so how do we fix that? What do you need me to do? And it's not always going to be that clean and that pretty,
of course.
But with practice, because believe it or not, you do have to practice this. You have to practice this T.A.L.K acronym. You have to practice conflict resolution. You have to practice fighting fair.
Yeah.
Like, these are not things that happen overnight.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
Trust us on that.
I like that.
Trust us on that.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice segue before we kind of wrap up with this. Is like, so Mems, like, when you aren't able to implement any of these tools, when you're not able to kind of effectively fight fair, what happens?
I mean, I feel like it just becomes like, I feel like the effect of not doing these things is a snowball. Mm-hmm. Like, you find yourself having the same arguments over and over and over. Yeah. And nothing gets fixed. Nothing gets resolved. Every single thing this person does wears on you. Yeah. Like, it becomes, oh, you don't ever do this or you don't ever do that. And it's because the root issue, that one issue that started 6 years ago when y'all had y'all first fight, and y'all didn't address that issue in a healthy way, it just keeps growing and growing and growing into other things. Yeah. And your problems grow with you, just like everything else.
Come on now.
So it's like, if you're not, and it doesn't mean it's too late. Like, you can always work these things back, and as you know, we always recommend therapy, couples counseling.
Come on now.
So if your problems are too big and the issues plant has grown too large for y'all to handle, you can always get help.
I like that. And again, we see the effects. I feel like we see the effects on social media. We see the effects in some of our relationships that we have with people. It leads to fractured relationships ultimately, right? It does. Because again, poor conflict resolution it can lead to things like resentment and bitterness and where you're not communicating at all, which plays into how intimate. And, when we talk about intimacy, we're not even talking about, again, just physical intimacy. Like, it puts up a barrier of how intimate you can be with your partner. And so all of these effects of poor conflict resolution, and again, it trickles down. I told y'all my example with Levi. Lord Jesus. It can trickle down to your children and the people around you. So we really, really, really are hoping, just starting this conversation about healthy communication and healthy conflict resolution resonates with y'all, number one, but then also challenges you guys to say, okay, where are the areas I need a little bit of work? Where do I need a little bit of work? So that was good, Mems.
I agree.
That was good.
It's very important. Such an important topic.
Yeah.
It's like communication. Everybody just talks about, like, in a marriage, communication is important. But there's so many, like, building blocks and aspects to communication. So this is just one aspect of healthy communication in a relationship or marriage.
Yeah. So, Mems, let's get into the people want to know. The people want to know. Are you reading today or am I reading?
I think it's my turn to read.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
Okay. I have been married for 5 years.
That is not how this letter starts.
Hey, MP.
Okay.
That's how the letter starts? Hey, MP. I have been married for 5 years, and while I love my man so much, LOL. I don't know why she laughed.
That is actually funny. Why did she laugh?
She said like it's a joke. And while I love my man so much, we have been experiencing the same fight over and over. That's what we just talked about.
Wow,
about us spending quality time together. I have a very demanding job, and when I'm off work, I like to relax in solitude. So that means I go to my lady lounge in the house. I drink my wine.
Is that a thing? Lady lounge?
Yeah, I mean, men have a man cave.
Okay.
So I guess. I listen to my vinyl records. I watch my shows. And I just really get a chance to unwind from my hectic work week. My husband feels like I should be spending this time with him and the kids, which I get. But I don't have a lot to give unless I recharge. And because I hate confrontation... Sound like she's a hider?
Yeah, sounds like she's a hider. Yeah, okay.
So because I hate confrontation, whenever he wants to talk about this, I tend to shut down and change the topic, or I just tell him what he wants to hear real quick. I've tried to explain to him where I'm coming from, but it seems it has to just be his way or nothing at all. I can see how frustrated this makes him, and I don't know what to do. We have this conversation. I think everything is good. Then in a couple weeks, he's giving me attitude and blowing me up about my unwind time. So this pattern is driving me up the wall and is really adding a strain on our marriage. We seem to really not be seeing eye to eye on this, and I'm struggling with how to move forward. What advice would you give me on how to deal with this? I'm all for sacrificing in a marriage, but I don't know if I can or should give up my self-care time. What would you guys do in this situation, and how do I end this recurring beef we have? Haha. She must be an awkward laugher. Like me. Sincerely, wine and vibes over juice boxes and Moana.
Wait.
Oh,
girl. Very funny. Okay. All right.
What do you suggest?
All right. You know me. Like, for some reason, it's the things that stick out to me, even though like I need to process everything.
Yeah. Okay,
so
process.
I know, right? Her question just stuck out to me. Like, I don't know if I should give up my self-care time. No. At least me, I'm never going to be a proponent of giving up self-care time, because at the end of the day, if you're no good to yourself, they're definitely not going to be good to your family. Number one. Maybe this was just her choice of words. When I see recurring beef, I'm like, okay, is this bigger than just this topic?
Right. Is it spilling into other things?
Is it spilling it into other things? Yeah. Because, not to say that this is not a major concern, but are there other things that maybe you've been harboring or he's been harboring that makes you use the word beef? Again, she did write haha, so that might have just been her way of like
playing on words.
Yeah. But secondly, number one, I do not believe you should give up your self-care. However, in a marriage, in a partnership, in a relationship, compromise is important and necessary, right? So yes, I understand you have a demanding job and you want to just chill out in the lady lounge and kind of unwind. In a partnership, there are going to be times when you're not doing things that you don't necessarily feel like doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for you to recognize your husband is telling you what he needs, right?
Yeah.
There's so many men, and this is not to generalize, but there's so many men, even so many women that sometimes don't know what they want. And he's verbalizing to you what he wants. Like, I want to spend time with my wife, or I want you to spend time with me and the kids.
Yeah.
And so apart from your hectic work week or your demanding job that it seems like you're giving 110% to, that also needs to happen in the marriage and for the family.
Yeah.
There needs to be a bit of balance.
Yeah.
The
key word.
There needs to be some balance. So those are the two things that stick out to me immediately, is that it sounds like you're giving all to your job, but then it's like almost like your family's getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. And again, it might not be the case, but just from what I'm reading. So I feel like there does need to be some compromise here, because at the end of the day, and this is interesting, I want to point this out really quick, is that you're going to have the same fight over and over again, because the fight is not about you unwinding or spending time in your lady lounge. It's not about that. The theme here is your husband feels neglected.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? So that goes back to what Memi was saying about the why.
Exactly. And that was what I was going to say.
Okay.
Like, your husband can probably benefit from some I statements, because what you say in the message is that he blows up on you or he gets really frustrated. So to you, it might just seem like, oh, this man trying to take away my personal time, or he trying to take away my self-care time. But it doesn't sound like you are understanding where that's coming from. So it's like maybe he could use the T.A.L.K acronym and sort of figure out how he's feeling and express that to you in a way that would, number one, bring your guard down and put you into problem-solving mode. Right? Like, if you were able to deepen the idea that your husband feels neglected, that he feels like he is not spending time with his wife, or that his wife is putting herself above the whole family, or that she's not being flexible. Like, if you can understand how that is making him feel, maybe that would make you be okay with every other week.
Yeah.
Like putting yourself on a schedule to where every other Friday, second and fourth Fridays, I'm in my lounge. And then the first and third, I'm with my husband and the kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I don't know your work schedule per se. I know you said your job is demanding, but I tend to think it's 2.5 days in a weekend. You have Saturday, Sunday, and you have Friday night. So maybe on Sunday evenings, you can, and I don't know what your work schedule is, but I hope you at least have 2 days off.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe you can spend one day with your lady lounge, one day with the family and the kids. Or I don't know your husband's schedule. Maybe he wants self-care time as well.
Yeah.
So make him feel like, baby, you also can have your self-care time in your man cave or with your friends, boys, whatever he needs to do to recharge. Yeah. And I'll take the kids. I'll spend time with the kids. Like it really is so much of being in a marriage and creating this family that we're talking about, this strong family, is knowing when to give and when to take. Yeah, knowing when, as much as we are proponents of self-care, as much as we always say keep yourself first, there are some situations where you have to balance that keeping yourself first.
That's good.
You can't keep yourself first
100%.
Yeah. Like, nah. You can't keep yourself first I don't know the right word, but keep yourself first in lieu of your family suffering.
Yeah.
Because is that really keeping yourself first? Right. If your family is suffering,
right.
Your family is a part of you. Yeah. So, it's like it's a very complex and weird feeling to work through. Yeah. But it's at the same time, you do have to understand that we are always going to say self-care, team self-care all day.
Yeah, all day.
But just make sure everything is good.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody's getting that self-care. Make sure everybody is make sure there's balance.
Balance.
Yeah. It's just always going to go back to balance. That is just put on a t-shirt. Balance is the key.
Balance is the key. Yes.
It just needs to be more balanced. If he's complaining this much, then that means there's a major lack of balance. Yeah. And if he wants all your time and he doesn't want you to be in ladies' lounge at all, that's unreasonable. Yeah. That's not a boundary you're okay with. Right. So you have to be able to vocalize that. Yeah. And if he can't see that, then I do see why you are having a more difficult time with this. Yeah.
So taking away, like going back, like we think it's important to get to the root cause, right? Yeah. So what is the theme behind this constant conversation? It seems like a lack of he feels like neglected in some way. Yeah. And so getting to the root of that and finding a healthy balance that helps you feel supported and helps him feel supported is where we would definitely end. But we are super proponents of self-care for you, for the family, and just people at large. We think it just helps.
Everybody needs it.
Yes, absolutely. I think it helps people be better individuals, be better partners, be better employees, whatever the case may be, when you're also putting the time to take care of yourself, for sure. So before we get out of here, major takeaways. We want you guys to remember, healthy conflict resolution is at the center of being heard, feeling heard, how people perceive what you're saying to them and how they take what you say to them. But then also, again, it's helping to just strengthen overall relationships as a whole. And so again, that T.A.L.K acronym, healthy modeling for your children. I'm gonna do better. Yeah. But then also again, compromise. Yeah. So any last words, Nems?
No, I think you did a good job. Okay. I feel like y'all take notes on the T.A.L.K acronym, go back, write it down. Maybe we'll get some t-shirts so y'all can remember. Hello. But I do feel like that would help so many people struggling with how to get their frustrations or their, like just whatever they're feeling in their heart to be able to get that across.
Yeah. So that's been another episode with your girl, Lara.
And Memi.
Thank you for joining us on Chats from the Peak. Until next time. Check out our website for more tips and resources. Follow us on IG, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all social media platforms. Yes. And
we have an ebook.
Oh,
also.
yes.
Check out our ebook.
Check out our ebook.
On our website,
yes.
on our page, on our Instagram
Link
page.
in bio.
Link in bio. We have an ebook on
come on now.
Healthy relationships.
And
how to maintain those.
Yes, come on now. We got some building blocks that are a little uncommon, but we think that are really pivotal for building long-lasting relationships. So check that out. And until then, it's been another episode on Chats from the Peak.